Tasya Nanjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manoabhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for the wonderful Mangalacharan Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. Panchali Mataji, would you like us to read the text and
I'm still on my mobile. I'm still trying to log in, but I can start reading the verse if that's okay, and then I'll join. Just give me a second, Mataji. I think I should be able to. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Naruttamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya Nashtaprayashu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So I'll read the shloka. Karmani Yasmin Anashvase Dhumratmanam Bhavan Apayayati Galvinda Pada Padma Savam La Madhu. That's the 12. And then today's shloka is Layama Labe Napi Na Swargam Na Punar Bhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Martyanam Kim Uta Shisaha. Recording in progress. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Apologies for the technical problems today, Mataji and Prabhujis. Okay, can you hear me properly now? Okay, so let me see if I can come on video.
Yes, Mataji, we can see you and hear you properly.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you very much once again for giving me the opportunity to serve Srimad Bhagavatam today.
sorry, I'm having problems. Just give me literally 30 more seconds. Okay, I'm back, yes. Right. Thank you very much again for giving me the opportunity to serve Srimad Bhagavatam. I pay my obeisances to all of you over here, and I also take the blessings and seek the mercies of my guru and all my gurus who has given me the opportunity to be able to share some words around this verse today. It's an extremely important verse. So the way we discuss it is we'll do a couple of minutes of quick recap, moving into this verse, and then we'll talk about this verse. I also have to give a huge thank you to Keshav Maharaj, because a lot of the things that I will be discussing today is from one of his classes, and I'm very much indebted to him and all my gurus for making it possible for me to say something about this verse. Hopefully I'll be able to speak at least 1% of what I have heard from my gurus. Now, starting with the slight recap. So we've been talking about, we've just heard about in the last canto, last week we talked about, we recapped around how Tama and Earth, Mother Earth, they were speaking how Parikshit Maharaj, he allowed 5 places for Kali to reside, and very, very cleverly being the astute Maharaj and ruler he was, he knew that it wasn't possible for Kali to capture, if that's right, to capture many of his subjects, because the places where he had assigned Kali to be in, they were not very popular places in his kingdom. So he knew that, and that is the reason he allowed Kali. We also talked about the fact that, despite the fact that Kali was doing what and not the perfect personality to be in a kingdom, but Kali, like Maya Devi, is also doing his duty. The personality of Kali is also doing the duty assigned by the Lord to him, and which is to make impurities come into the lives of people, and make them more and more engrossed and completely absorbed and covered with materialism and material objects and sense gratification. And then in the recent verses, we also see how the sages, they thank Sutta Goswami, and because he was able, because Sutta Goswami says how Parikshit Maharaj was able to keep Kali afar from his people, and they wanted to know about Parikshit Maharaj, and he hears about his birth and how he had come to the 7 days before his death. And also the fact that despite understanding that there were lots of bad things about Kali, Parikshit Maharaj also understood, being the great devotee and being the knower of all, being a Mahabhagavat, Parikshit Maharaj also understood that Kali also had a few good qualities as well. I mean, we have talked about throughout our discussions on Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, we've always talked about the Harinam Sankirtan being our Yuga Dharma, and how it is only possible in Kali Yuga, and how very simple it is to do the Harinam Sankirtan. And even the Devas and the Devatas from the heavenly planets, they want to come to the material world to be able to do this. To take the Lord's name, and how it is only possible in Kali Yuga and not possible and wasn't possible in the other yugas where the Yuga Dharma was more elaborate, whether it's deity worship or sacrifices or austerities. So that is obviously one of the good points of Kali Yuga. But at the same time, it is also we also hear that Kali Yuga, the sinful reactions that we have in Kali Yuga, that is only and only if we commit an action. The mind is full of, our mind is very difficult to control. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna, how do we control the mind? And Krishna says, you've got to practice it to be, to keep it under control and guide it, steer it towards the right direction. But we see that Maharaj Parikshit understood that Kali Yuga, in the Kali Yuga, you can only get the sinful reactions if you perform a sinful act. As long as it stays in your mind, whereas in the earlier yugas, if you even thought about a bad thought or a sinful thought, you would immediately incur karmic reaction to it. But whereas in Kali Yuga, that is not the case, because if you keep it in just your mind, it does not get as bad a karmic reaction as you would get in other yugas. In fact, it only gets a full-fledged bad karmic reaction when you perform a sinful act. So these were the conversations that brings us into this verse, where Sutta Goswami also talks about why it is very, very important to come across a pure devotee. And that is what our verse today is all about. Now, before we get into, we've read about the verse. Would anyone like to read the purport of the verse before we go in? Or do you want me to read it as we do the text? Or if someone wants to read it, they can, because I've only read the verse. I haven't read because I was having problems, but I can read it very quickly. Just from
I can read it. Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, that's absolutely fine. If you want to read the translation and the purport.
Hare Krishna, thank you for
Hare
giving
Krishna. Yes.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The value of moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. And what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for them. Purport. When there are some similar points, it is possible to compare one thing to another. One cannot compare the association of pure devotee to anything material. Men who are addicted to material happiness aspire to reach the heavenly planets like the moon, Venus, and Indraloka, and those who are advanced in material philosophical speculation aspire after liberation from all material bondage. When one becomes frustrated with all kinds of material advancement, one desires the opposite type of liberation, which is called apura bhava, or no rebirth. For a pure devotee of the Lord, do not aspire after the happiness obtained in the heavenly kingdom, nor do they aspire after liberation from material bondage. In other words, for the pure devotees of the Lord, the material pleasure obtainable in the heavenly planets are like phantasmagoria, and because they are already liberated from all material conceptions of pleasure and distress, they are factually liberated even in the material world. This means that the pure devotees of the Lord are engaged in a transcendental existence, namely in the loving service of the Lord, both in the material world and in the spiritual world. As a government servant is always the same, either in the office or or at home or at any place, so a devotee has nothing to do with anything material, for he is exclusively engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. Since he has nothing to do with anything material, what pleasure can he derive from material benediction like kingship or other overlordships, which are finished quickly with the end of the body? Devotional service is eternal. It has no end because it is spiritual. Therefore, since the assets of the pure devotee are completely different from material assets, there is no comparison between the two. Suta Goswami was a pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his association with the rishis in Naimisharanya is unique. In the material world, association with gross materialistic is veritably condemned. The materialist is called Yoshit Sangi, or one who is much attached to the material entanglement, women, and other paraphernalia. Such attachment is conditioned because it drives away the benediction of life and prosperity, and just the opposite in Bhagavad Sangi, for one who is always in the association with Lord's name, form, qualities, etc. Such association is always desirable, it is worshipable, it is praiseworthy, and one may accept it as the highest goal of life. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much for reading the text. So thank you very much for Prabhajis and Matajis who've just joined. We've done a recap of the verses before, so now we are going straight into the verse. So right at the beginning, when I started our discussion, I said that this is a very, very important verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. Does anyone know why? Why is this a very important verse? Now, there are two verses in the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 18,000 verse, the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. There are two verses that are repeated verbatim. Okay. And they appear twice in the Bhagavatam exactly in the same form. And even the translation that Prabhupada gives, they appear almost the same. But the Sanskrit verse is exactly the same. So one, as you realized, is this verse. Can anyone tell me which is the other verse? Okay. The other verse is in Canto 10, where we have Krishna's life. So I briefly mentioned that. So that is where Krishna, once when the wives of the Brahmanas, they come to Krishna and they want to stay with Krishna, and they don't want to return to their husbands who had not accepted Krishna and Balaram and the other gopas, and they didn't offer any food to them. Whereas the Brahmanas' wives, they offered food to Krishna and Balaram, and they wanted to come because they knew who Krishna and Balaram were. And they wanted to stay back with Krishna, and they didn't want to return to their husbands. The other time is the same verse where it's repeated, as where the gopis left their grihastas, the households, and they, in the middle of the night, just before the rasa dance, they came to Krishna and they didn't want to go back. And both the times Krishna tells them that just go back, because, you know, just chant my name, just meditate on me, just think about me, remember me, and I will be with you. the other day we were talking about how Krishna, in his name, his form, his name, his books, it's all the same, because Krishna is not relative as we are. Krishna is the absolute. So whatever we do about Krishna, on Krishna, for Krishna, it means the same. It is Krishna, it's the absolute. So Krishna tells them, just go back and meditate on me, or chant with me, or talk to me, think about me, and I am with you all the time. The Brahmanas' wives, they go back to their husbands, but we know what the gopis did, didn't we? We know that the gopis refused to do that, and the gopis stayed back. And we, when we were talking about the rasa dance a bit, last year during Kartik, we knew why they did that, and they gave that their own realization and their own arguments, and they easily defeated Krishna. And Krishna is always defeated by his pure devotees. So we know why the gopis didn't go back. Now, why do I mention this other verse again? Because from the first verse, where both in the 10th canto, from the first time where the Brahmanas' wives, they return to their husbands, we understand that in our lives as very, very new devotees, and I can only talk about myself, we can see that as new devotees, this is what we have to do to improve our Krishna consciousness. We have to constantly meditate on Krishna, think about Krishna, chant his names, do deity worships, or go and take part in something related to Krishna, so that we get that attachment to Krishna. But what do we learn from the gopis? We also learn that, because the gopis, they refused to go back. They stayed with Krishna. They did the rasa dance. Now, whilst in the first case, we understand that, when we chant about Krishna, when we talk about him, Krishna being Krishna, Krishna being a Bhaktavatsa God, who's defeated by his devotees and loves his devotees more than he loves himself. When people are chanting his name, it's not that he is full of ego and pride, that, oh gosh, I'm the supreme personality of Godhead, and that is the reason people are chanting my name so much. But it is because as soon as we start chanting about him or thinking about him, Krishna immediately thinks, do you know what? That person loves me. That is his first thought, not that I am important and so they are chanting my name, but his first thought is, that person loves me. And a few classes back, we talked about how Krishna ended up massaging Arjuna's feet whilst Arjuna was chanting his name. We heard about that pastime where Arjuna was chanting Krishna's name in his sleep, and Krishna was so overwhelmed that he has tears running down his cheek whilst he was massaging Arjuna's feet. And that is because when we think about Krishna as a new devotee, Krishna thinks, that person loves me. And Krishna automatically loves us way much more back. But when we come to the gopis and we say that the gopis refuse to go back, we also think that somewhere down the line in our path of chanting and meditating on Krishna, our greed to meet Krishna and be with him should also be great, and increase and increase and increase so much that we would not be able to bear being away from Krishna, and we would want to remain with him and go back to him immediately. So whereas now we need to just chant and meditate, but we also need to acquire the taste, like the gopis, where it will be unbearable for us to go back to be without Krishna or be separate from Krishna, and want us to be with him at all times. And then these two verses are repeated. And that brings us to our verse as to why, another verse, which is also repeated twice, once now in Canto 1 and once again in Canto 4. How does it relate to the verses in the 10th canto? Now, we talked about pure Krishna praying. We talked about bhakti in the 10th canto, where Krishna is directly is relating to his devotees. And that brings us to our verse today. how do we get that bhakti? So the whole thing, we go through the whole of Bhagavatam, we reach canto 10. The topmost thing that we can get in Krishna consciousness is Krishna Prem. And through the cantos, we talk about how we can reach Krishna Prem. So how is Krishna teaching us? How is our acharyas teaching us how to reach Krishna Prem? And today's verse tells us how. And we see in the verse, it says it is by coming in contact with pure devotees. That is how we can do that. Now, it is in I mean, it's a great fortune in one's life when one is able to come in contact with a pure devotee of Krishna. This is perhaps the most important day in the life of a conditioned soul, of a materialistic soul. Why? Because coming in contact with a pure devotee not only changes, it's not only just a life-changing, or it not only changes the life of the person or that jiva or that soul, but what it does, it changes this whole jiva's journey. It's by coming in contact with a pure devotee, it does not change just a material existence or a material life in the life of that jiva. It changes the entire journey of that soul, of that conditioned soul. And that is why meeting a pure devotee is so very much important. Now, the great Acharya Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who, again, a great Acharya, who was born in the 17th century, Gauriya Vaishnav, he wrote many books, and one of his books is called Madhurya Kadambini. Has anyone heard about that? His book, Madhurya Kadambini. Now, in that book, Vishwanath Chakravarti explores how the love for Krishna starts, and then how this journey of a jiva begins, of a conditioned jiva, of conditioned soul begins. And he says that, yes, some people might say it starts because, you know, in the past life, that conditioned soul must have done some pure bhakti. And because you can never lose bhakti when you're born in the next life, you automatically, start from where you left in the previous life, and you start from there. And that is your path of bhakti. But then you question, Chakravarti Thakur questions, but then how did he come into bhakti the previous life? Then he says, okay, maybe it's from the birth, from the life before. And then so then there has to be a start. So he said, no, I'm not really very satisfied with this answer. There must be a better answer to this. Then he thinks, okay, some people might think that a conditioned soul, despite being very materialistic, might actually have done a lot of material piety, a lot of charity, a lot of good things, and maybe has pleased Krishna. And so that is the reason in the next birth, he has come across a devotee who has aspired him to become a Krishna conscious. But then in Bhagavad Gita, in verse 929, Krishna says, Samoaham sarva bhuteshu, I am equally disposed to all living beings. So if Krishna is equal to all living beings, if the sun rays that is provided to us is equal to the devotees and the non-devotees, how is it that Krishna only gives the opportunity to some individual souls to come across pure devotees, and he ignores the others, and he does not give opportunity to others? That can't be the case, because Krishna is impartial to both devotees and non-devotees. So Chakravarti Thakur says, no, this is also not, I'm not satisfied with this answer. And then he says, the only answer is what is said in this verse, that the only reason is because a soul, a conditioned soul, by good fortune, and that is the key phrase, by good fortune comes across a pure devotee. And as the verse says, by good fortune, Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya, the third line of our verse today. By good fortune, by the association of a pure devotee, is what starts the journey of a conditioned soul towards Krishna consciousness. Okay, and that is the root cause of devotional service. Okay, so all our conditioned souls, as soon as we come into this material world, in our original status, the souls are all Krishna conscious, but because we've come into this material world, that Krishna consciousness lies dormant and is covered with material greed and, you know, our want for sense gratification. But as soon as we meet a pure devotee, they are able to inspire us, and that dormancy that is triggered and that is shaken, and the Krishna consciousness that plants the seed of Krishna consciousness in the heart of a conditioned soul immediately. Chakravarti Thakur further goes on to say that it is not just the association of a pure devotee that arises the Krishna consciousness feeling in a conditioned soul. It is the bhakti in the heart of that pure devotee that empowers that pure devotee to reach out to others who are not devotees. Okay, so it's not just the person, it's the bhakti in the heart. And you see how everything comes a full circle. We were just talking about Canto 10, where we talk about Krishna Prem and Krishna Bhakti. And we come to these verses again, where, you know, we see a pure devotee inspiring another conditioned soul. So it's not just the person. We go back to the bhakti. The bhakti in the Krishna, in the pure devotee, inspires Krishna consciousness feelings in a conditioned souls, and it triggers the journey of Krishna Prem in others. So we see, what we realize is, from the first realization we get from this verse is that it is bhakti that arises bhakti in someone else. It's the bhakti of a pure devotee that arises the bhakti in a conditioned soul. And that is why it is so important. It is so vital. And that is why it is so precious to any other thing that someone can get. Okay, and bhakti can only be caused by bhakti. And the career of bhakti is what we get from the bhakta. So Jiva Goswami says that Krishna's mercy follows a bhakta or a pure devotee just as a thread follows a needle. Does that make sense? So Krishna's mercy follows a pure devotee just like a thread follows a needle. In what way? So just like you have a needle, if you think of a needle to be a pure devotee, now often with a needle, we see it pricks, whether it's for, usually for medical purposes, it pricks. And when it pricks, it hurts us a bit. But when it pricks and gives us the medicine, it is for our good, whether to make us immune towards some viruses or as a medicine. So when the pure bhaktas or the pure devotees with their needle pricks a conditioned soul, just like a needle is followed by the thread, if you think about the thread to be Krishna's mercy, you would realize as soon as the needle pricks a conditioned soul, Krishna's mercy as the thread immediately starts showering its mercy on the conditioned soul as well. because Krishna's mercy follows the needle. And if the needle has pricked a conditioned soul, the thread cannot be far from that conditioned soul. So the thread also starts its journey, okay, on that conditioned soul. And that is what Jiva Goswami says, that it is Krishna's bhakti is like that. It's like the thread and the needle. So devotees, so Keshav Swami, when I was listening to his class, Keshav Maharaj was saying, do you know what? I think devotees are incredibly dangerous. They're incredibly dangerous. And he explains further and says that they are like Vamandev. So you come to King Bali and say, oh, I'm just a small Brahmin, you know, I don't need anything. I just need 3 steps. And he asked for those 3 steps because that is how much you need just to lie down. And Bali Maharaj readily agreed. And look what happened. With those 3 steps, he took over the entire 3 worlds. Okay, and Keshav Maharaj was saying, and that is exactly what the devotees do. They meet somebody, you give out a book, or you say, oh, just read 1 page, or just read 1 paragraph. Or they meet somebody and say, oh, you're not a vegetarian, that's fine, you know, come and have some prasad, have some vegetarian food. And then slowly and slowly and slowly, people acquire the taste of that prasad and the vegetarian food. And then you get the book which says higher taste, and you're intrigued and you try reading the book. And then, you know, you say, do you know the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? Just say it once, say it for 5 minutes, and then it grows and grows and grows, and it takes over your entire life. Okay, so you cannot, it's like Krishna. Once he is in your heart, he just never lets you go. And we are singing the Chaurashtakam nowadays, you know, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Krishna, you have stolen everything from us. You have literally stolen everything for us. The only thing we can do is we can make you a prisoner in our heart. And I'm not letting you go anywhere. So just as you have stolen, you're a thief, you've stolen everything from us, I am going to keep you a prisoner in my heart forever. So similarly, Krishna Bhakti, once the conditioned soul comes in contact with a pure devotee and that needle is pricked, that's it. They take over slowly but steadily. If the intention is right, and if there is the will from that conditioned soul to come into Krishna consciousness, there is no way they're going to go away. There's no way they're going to be able to leave Krishna consciousness again. It's like a salesman, isn't it? I was just thinking about a salesman. When you go into a shop and you want to just buy one small thing, but if that is a perfect salesman, you will end up buying loads of other things which you never really wanted to buy in the first place. But it's being a salesman in a nice kind of way. It's giving you the right things to go back to Godhead, not the wrong things. Okay. One of Prabhupada's disciples was Brahmananda Prabhu. Has anyone, you must have heard about him. He was also called Prabhupada's son many a times because, you know, one of his first devotees, the very first president of ISKCON, he was a teacher, and he gave, he was so devoted to Prabhupada, he would just do anything for Prabhupada. He would get $400 as a teacher, as a salary, gave that all to Prabhupada. So that they could start publishing books, etc., and really work for ISKCON. And then every single day he would ask 25 pence from Prabhupada so that he could take the bus to his work and back. So Brahmananda Prabhu was once asked, he was talking, giving a class, and he was asked, you talked so highly of Prabhupada. You know, you must think of Prabhupada as God. And Brahmananda Prabhu said, actually, no, I don't do that, because that's what I thought initially. But no, Guru is not the God. Guru is a representative of God, very near to God in the material world. But do you know what? To me, he is even greater than God, much greater than God, because had it not been for me, I would be nowhere, because he came to America and he saved my life. And then he started crying. And that is what pure devotees do. They touch the hearts of conditioned soul, and they change the hearts of conditioned soul, so that they are able to go back. That's what, to Godhead. That is the intention. A pure devotee has only and only one intention in their heart: how to touch the hearts of conditioned soul, how to reach out to them and take them back to Godhead. And Brahmananda Prabhu was also saying, you know, and there was another pastime where he said, Prabhupada, he was, you know, wakes up, he only sleeps for a couple of hours at night, woke up in the morning, did his arti, then wrote letters, gave lectures, you know, did managerial work, had to go out for some visits. And then by evening time, when they were returning to the temple, they were in the back seat of the car, and Prabhupada was just dozing off a bit. And Brahmananda Prabhu is, he was, you know, he was well built, and Prabhupada sitting next to him was dozing off and off and off. And then he dozed off so much that he just, his head just fell on Brahmananda Prabhu's lap. And Brahmananda Prabhu said, and there I was just looking at Prabhupada on my lap, and I was thinking, yes, this is what a pure Vaishnava is. This is what he is. All he does every single day, every single second of the day, is try to help others, try to bring others into Krishna consciousness. And that is what the conditioned souls need to realize. That is what the verse today is asking us to realize, that how important it is to come in contact with such a pure Vaishnav. And because all they think, all they do is just leap out, reach out, just to be able to reach the condition. So, and every such Vaishnava is so special, because and each such pure devotee is the only hope of a conditioned soul. There is no other hope. We might earn a lot of money in our jobs. We might get, you know, lots of things, but it is only when we come across a conditioned soul and it's touched by them that we understand how lucky we are. It's like, you know, in the so I'm just thinking, okay, 15 minutes. It's like if you light a candle in space, you know, it can reach up to 12 miles, because it's just so dark in outer space. Similarly, just one devotee, you know, nobody is high or small. Sometimes we think that, you know, we are very insignificant in the whole Krishna conscious movement, but even the most insignificant of devotees, because they have come into Krishna consciousness, their whole task is to, you know, reach out to others who have not been as lucky as themselves, and see how you can bring them to Krishna consciousness, because that is their way to, that is their starting point in their journey back to Godhead. Now, when such a thing happens, when the pure devotee does reach a conditioned soul, Krishna becomes very active immediately. It is as if Krishna, it is as if, you know, we immediately start acting in the drama of Krishna consciousness, and Krishna becomes a character as well, because Krishna prods the devotees, the pure devotees, empowers them to reach out more and more. And if there are new devotees, that's Krishna playing a part as well, asking that new devotees, trying to get that new devotees into more ways of getting into Krishna consciousness. Again, there is that play of the free will. The devotee has to be willing, but Krishna becomes extra attentive and extra active. When a conditioned soul comes across a pure devotee, Krishna immediately joins hands with the pure devotee and starts acting in the drama of how to get the new devotee into more and more Krishna, or to become more and more Krishna conscious. Now we've heard about the beautiful pastime where in Mahaprabhu's Leela, where Mahaprabhu wouldn't meet Pratap Rudra Maharaj because he was the king, and Mahaprabhu being a sannyas, he didn't want to meet him. And then the other devotees of Mahaprabhu said, you know what, just go to him. He's in the Gundicha temple. There's a garden outside. Go and sing the Gopi Geet. He loves the Gopi Geet. And where he goes there, the king goes there, and he starts singing Tava Katham Mritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibir Iditam Kalmasapaham Shravana Mangalam Shrimad Atatam Bhuvi Krinati Ye Purida Javaha. Sorry about my Sanskrit pronunciation. The last line, Bhuvi Krinati Ye Purida Javaha. And hearing him, Mahaprabhu started saying loudly, Burida, 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 meaning, you are God sent, you are magnanimous, because the meaning of this verse is that where the gopis are telling Krishna, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are life and soul of a suffering soul in the material world. And certainly those who spread the message of Godhead are the most munificent. And Mahaprabhu started shouting, Brida, Brida, you're most munificent, you're most magnificent. You've touched my heart. You're spreading the word of Krishna. You've touched my word. And he rushes out of his room and he embraces the king. And that is how he accepts the king. And he forgets that he's a king and he's a sannyas. And we see that how Krishna embraces anyone and everyone who tries to, even in the little way, tries to spread Krishna consciousness to others. And in Rupa, and even when Mahaprabhu is talking to Rupa Goswami, and we hear the reference in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says that Brahmanda Brahmite Gono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prashade Pai Bhakti Lata Beej. We've heard about this reference many times, that by wandering in this black materialistic world, in this dark world, and if any fortunate person, any fortunate soul comes in contact with a pure devotee, then the Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed of devotion, is immediately planted. So we go back again to what Bhakti Vishwanath Chakravarti said, that, there might be many reasons that as to why someone takes up devotion, but the true reason is this fortunate meeting a pure devotee, what our verse tells us again. We see so many examples throughout the Bhagavatam of pure devotees. We see Narad Muni doing that, inspiring so many bhaktas, whether it's Prahlad Maharaj, whether it's Dhruva Maharaj, but we see so many examples, and I'm just going to rush because there isn't much time. Now, we also see that, what is explained is, and Prabhupada also tries to explain, is that, some of these conditioned souls, they have security from their previous life to be able to accept that from the pure devotees. So they have enough piety, could be material piety, but they are like the dry firewood. So all they need is a little bit of spark that will ignite that bhakti in them. Whereas you have other souls who are not so receptive to, if you are distributing books, you will see one person standing and taking the book. You would see others ignoring the books and walking past. So there needs to be that little bit of sukriti in a conditioned soul to be able to receive, to be able to have that little bit of, some piety and be receptive of that blessings from a pure devotee. So although the meetings are fortunate, but a little bit of sukriti is required. Okay. Now, in the verse, it says that such a meeting is lavanapi. Lavanapi, even a fraction of a second with the meeting with the pure devotee is beneficial. So even that fraction of a second, you can give the Harinam, or they can listen to the Harinam Sankirtan as they're walking past on the road, on the streets, or they can get a book, or they can have a little bit of prasad from a devotee. So even that one moment is very important, because pious activities can be of two types. There's one, in the materialistic people, the conditioned souls, you have the people who are just does all good things and pious things because they just want to enjoy more. And they just want to go back to the heavenly planets, where there is the opportunity and the chance to have more sense gratification. Whereas the others, and they get so much, they are just the opposite. So what they do is they want to get liberation because they have enjoyed so much that they become averse to all kinds of material things. And that is where, the verse is mentioning that is where they want to go back to, they want to be liberated, and they merge into the Brahman. They mention a word, sorry, I've just written down, yes, they keep enjoying, and they try to avoid taking birth again. And so they want to merge into the Brahman. And then that is what Apunarbhava is. Apunarbhava, the meaning is not being born again. So people who just want not to be engaged into this material world or sense gratification, they just completely go away from material enjoyment, and they just want to not be born again and merge into the Brahman. But pure devotees want neither. They don't want to go into the heavenly planets, because in Prabhupada mentions in the purport, that is for pure devotees, material pleasures are like phantasmagoria. I can't pronounce the word properly. Phantasmagoria. And what is phantasmagoria? Does anyone know? It is imaginary pleasure. It is thinking that if I do something, I will be really, really happy. This is going to give me a whole lot of pleasure. Because devotees, some people think, if only I can go to the heavenly planets, I will get so much pleasure there. But when they actually experience that, they realize that this is nothing, this is temporary as well. It is the imagination which gives that sense of, it's very good, but it is just an illusion as well. So pure devotees, they don't want this. They don't want phantasmagoria. Neither do they want apunarbhava. Neither do they want to go into the Brahman. What they really want is to just be engaged in the service of the Lord. And that is their conception of happiness, because just the service of the Lord gives them a transcendental experience. Just that meeting with the pure devotees and starting their Krishna consciousness immediately makes them eligible to start experiencing that loving exchange with the Lord. And Prabhupada gives the example of a government servant, that, why will a pure devotee want to have the position of a minister or a celebrity, because all those positions are temporary and only related to this material world. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that, Adi Antavanta Kontea Nateshu Ramate Pada, that, O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. So the wise man, who is called as Bhagavat Sangha, as opposed to a Yosit Sangha, as mentioned in the purport. Yosit Sangha are people who just want to engage in material existence, whereas a pure devotee, they want Bhagavat Sangha. They have already come in contact with a pure devotee, a Bhagavat. They want to continue with that Bhagavat Sangha, take part in the Lord's name, take part in doing service to the Lord, read Prabhupada's books, listen to Kirtan, and that is how they will continue to increase their Krishna consciousness. And so that is the reason, that is the whole essence of this verse. Through the translation and through the whole purport, Prabhupada tries to explain to us that, you know, do not try to, when you're very, very fortunate to come across a pure devotee and that Bhakti Lata Bij has been planted in your heart, please, please do not waste your life by coming across Yosit Sanghas, by just wanting Apunarbhava, by just wanting to go to the heavenly planets, or by just wanting to merge into the Brahmand, because none of those are going to give you the actual love or actual happiness. The only happiness you would get is further engaging with these pure devotees, furthering your Bhagavad Sangha, further engaging with the Lord directly, and try to please the Lord, do his service. So we go back to Canto 10 again, the other verse where Prabhupada repeats again, we are only starting with our devotion. We will have to start. We've got the first, you know, we've got that beach. We've got to start. We've got to chant. We've got to remember Krishna all the time. And only then, only, you know, that will lead us towards the path of pure bhakti or pure prem. We may not be able to reach, you know, I mean, I speak for myself, you know, the gopis, they were the perfection of Krishna prem, but at least we can be on the journey towards that pure Krishna prem. And that is the whole essence of this verse. So with that, I take permission to finish our discussion today. I do apologize. There was just so much to talk about this, but so I did rush through it a bit. So apologies if I have made any mistakes. Please do correct me if I have made any mistakes. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for that, this session today. And I have a lot of reflections as you were talking, but maybe we could save it for another day. Are there any questions or comments? No questions or comments, and we have overtaken a little more than our usual time. But I just wanted to say that when you said that we think, okay, it is from our previous life that we are able to do this life, then I'm now 60, about 60. So why is it taken so long for me to come to Krishna consciousness at the age of 60? And I should have started from day one if it was from the last birth. So definitely for me, it is an association of a lot of pure devotees that has brought me to Krishna consciousness.
Yes, Mataji. And it's also said that it is continuous association. So you can be a devotee, but when we see about Jara Bharat, we see King Bharat, he was such a great devotee, and then he lost, so he went to the jungle, he lost the association of other devotees, and and had to be born as a deer in his next birth because he got so attached to a deer. And then he took birth as Jaraparat. So we see it's the continuous association, which is so important.
Thank you very much. A lot of reflections during the talk. So I am cognizant of the time, so I hand over to Parth Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, are you there?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you very much, Mataji, for your nice and wonderful class. Really, you are giving so many instructions and so many topics. It's coming to us, and really, you are getting so many studies to summarize all the things. Like you are giving the analogy about the thread and the needle, how the Krishna's mercy come through the thread. When the needle is there, they pricks our devotees. So Krishna did not leave us, the devotee. and you are giving so much analogy like this Gopi's wife, this Brahman's wife, and other things also, and giving the importance of the devotional service, association of the devotee, like you are talking. That is the most important, and that is the essence of everything. That is the secret of the success. Like in Shastra, you were talking about the uh, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra ka hai. Love matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hai. Love, like you are talking about the friction, this is single friction of the moment. That is also giving the great opportunity. And there are so many instances in the Bhagavata and Purana. As I did 1 second, also Narada, who was a maid son, and association of the great Vaishnava, he became Narada Rishi in this another life. And also Dhruv Maharaj, by the association of Naraji, is getting on the 6th month, he's getting liberation. Also, Dashu Ratnakar, in the association of Narad Muni, he became Valmiki in this life. And also Parvata Muni, also association of his, like Mrugari hunter Mrugari, he became the great sages. And there are so many things that is the most important is the Sadhu Sangha, because they are the blissful. And it is talking that they are more compassionate than the God. If God, the devotee can supposed to telling something, yes, I will give this one or benediction. Lord Krishna supposed to be fulfilled that one. We can know everything, but the devotee promised, the God supposed to be sanctioned that one and promised that one. So thank you very much, Mataji. Such a nice class. It's very wonderful, very depth class you are giving. We are so thankful to you, Mataji. It's such a wonderful.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the all the references you've given. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Also, thanks all the devotee who is joining here. I request everyone, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for glorification of Hare Krishna. Panchali Kar Mataji, please join everyone. Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Rama,
Hare
Rama
Ram,
Rama,
Ram Ram.
Vancha Kalpa Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Panchali Kar Mataji ki jai.
All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji and Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Really, it's very nice class, really.
Thank you, Prabhuji. This is such an important, I had so many other references.